It's that time of the week. Hello, everyone. Marvel-ous Movie Mondays with Kelsey and Dill. We're back. Another Monday, another great day talking Marvel. Hello, Kelsey. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Jill. How are you?
I'm good. It's been an emotional week between the lows of the sadness in this episode, but also the highs of the anticipation for the finale, but also the lows of knowing it's over next week, but
Yep,
also the
yep, yep.
highs of knowing the Falcon to the Winter Soldier is right around the corner, and the lows of potentially pushing all these movies back in theaters, but the highs of knowing that we're eventually going to see them somehow. So
So we're
that's my
on a
role.
roller coaster of emotions right now, basically, is all that's happening.
It's Marvel. It knows what
It's
it's doing.
it's anticipated, right? Exactly. It's
Um,
expected.
So we will get all into the previously on episode. I believe it's called. Right?
It
Did I get that
is.
right?
Good job,
I,
Jill.
I don't write down the episode names anymore because I'm like I can remember these and then I forget I'm on air. But I remember that one because
That's what you got me for.
we were literally seeing everything that happened in Wanda's life ever. We are going to be talking first and foremost our Marvel news. Now, the interesting thing about Marvel news is that there's no headline that could possibly compete with all the Spider-Man shit we got this week.
Hmm.
We decided to both just talk about Spider-Man in general. I'm going to talk more about the fake outs, and then Kelsey can like talk about the actual announcement and what she thinks is going on there. So first, Tom Holland, he's the king of spoilers, and he spoiled a title, and that was Spider-Man Phone Home. The ET play on words. I don't even know if they could use this title
Don't
because of
know.
the ET thing. Because
Did
ET,
they
that's a totally different
copyright
studio.
that phrase? Is that like, do they own that phrase? Phone home?
No, but I mean, I feel like that's where the inspiration is.
Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
know,
I'm just
but
saying, like, legally, I think they could use it, but
they could.
it doesn't
Um,
matter because
because then Jacob, I forget his last name, but Batalon, Jacob Batalon, I think his name is.
yeah,
I don't know how to pronounce it,
I
but
think it's
uh,
Babylon, actually.
Batalon. Okay, that's a cooler name than Batalon. Is Batalon.
Yeah,
Like, that's awesome.
He's like from Hawaii.
He's like
He's a
he's
cool cat.
battling. He's a Marvel hero now. He's battling the battalion of the Batalon. All right, so he came out and said on Tom Holland's post, he said, "Wait, is that the title or something like that? Like, wait, is that the right title? Are you sure?" Because then he posted Spider-Man Homewrecker, which is his title that he posted on his Instagram. And then we see Zendaya about an hour or two later comes in with the Spider-Man home slice. So we got these three titles. At first, everyone was like posting, "Oh, it's Phone Home. This is so cool." Everyone was blowing up, and then I was like, "Let me give it a minute." And then I watched Jacob's post because I knew Tom Holland is the king of spoilers. Like I knew maybe something was up with that. Like why is he the one announcing it? Like I get it, he's the star, but I feel like if I don't hear it from Marvel first, I won't believe it. Um, ever, even though his spoilers are sometimes reliable. But uh, when once Jacob posted, I was like, okay, I see what they're doing. And then I waited because I was like, is Tony Revolori going to post something? Is Zendaya posting something? Is Jon Favreau posting anything? Is Happy? Is Marissa Tomei going to post anything? And then, sure enough, Zendaya posted the home slice. So now we're left with three titles. So now at this point, we know it's all hullabaloo. We know it's not going to be one of these three because they're not going to want to like they're not going to do it that way. So
Yeah.
so then we're all speculating. We're all wondering, well, what could this possibly mean? Is this a way to throw us off and just poke fun at Tom Holland, or does this have to do with the story itself? And this is where I came to a bit of a theory. I was on this train of thought. I thought Phone Home and Home Slice pointed me to two very specific moments in the whole Spider-Man iconography universe, but I was stuck with Homewrecker. I was like, what could this possibly mean? Then my friend Elizabeth, if you're watching, thank you so much, pointed something out on TikTok. We were TikTok messaging, and she sent me something that might have explained the third piece of the puzzle. So first off, Phone Home. This is the title that we saw, and it made me think of the whole entirety of Spider-Man: Homecoming. How Peter is trying to call Happy and call Iron Man. He's like, "Yo, give me some work to do." The whole premise is him wanting to be an Avenger, and part of doing that is getting on his phone and constantly texting like a teenager would. Like, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Do you need me now? Do you need me now? It's like when you get your first job, all you want to do is work, work, work. That was like, okay, so Phone Home, I get it, because Peter's always trying to call Happy on his phone. Then with Home Slice, I was like, oh, this has got to be an homage to Pizza Time. Because Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was very famously in Spider-Man 2. That whole opening sequence with him delivering the pizzas is one of the sequences I remember first and foremost, and became an iconic, um, uh, uh, way to remember Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. He was the pizza delivery guy. But then Homewrecker, I was like, what? So we got one that's more Tom Holland centric, one that's more Tobey Maguire centric. I was like, does Homewrecker have anything to do with Andrew Garfield? And then again, like I said, Elizabeth pointed this out to me on TikTok, and I went, oh shoot, this makes a lot of sense. So take a look. This is about a 5-second clip, so it's not a long clip. But take a look at this clip from The Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Where are you going? Peter, come back here, please.
Did he just wreck his home?
Oh my goodness, Dill.
So my theory is if they are doing the Spider-Man, bringing all three together, which has been heavily rumored to be the case, and I feel like if it didn't happen, enough people have gotten their hopes up now to where they'd be pissed off. I have not gotten my hopes up because I want to keep them as low as possible. But if that's the case, they should not show it in the trailer. Showing it in the trailer would ruin it for me, because I think that has to be something you see for the first time on screen. Like, if you've already seen it before, that's like if they showed Captain America holding the hammer in the trailer. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. So I was thinking, okay, this is a way of hinting it without deliberately saying it, because some people are going to see Phone Home, overthink it, and Homewrecker. But I think it was the home slice that really made me think slice pizza, because obviously slice, there's very few things you refer to as slices. Pie and pizza are the two. A pizza is a pie. Cake, like those are the things you think of when you think of slice. And so it led me to pizza, and that was like, oh, Peter Parker. But I was like, Tom Holland is not a pizza guy. So I think this is a way of hinting that we might see, the Phone Home, the home slice, and then, of course, the home wrecker with Andrew Garfield. So that's my theory. I don't want to read too far into it because, again, like I said, I don't want to get my hopes up. I've been rambling. Kelsey, tell us about the actual legit title of the movie that was eventually announced.
Listen, all I have to say to that, Dill, is that if the latest episode of WandaVision taught me anything, is that the internet is wrong. The internet, we were so wrong. We were so off with most of the theories I think that were about WandaVision. So I'm not entirely convinced about this one either. But I will say that.
But WandaVision, it's like you're progressive, you're trudging through the story week by week. So like it's normal to have theories that you think of that are put down. This is like before the movie's even announced. Like this is all just like this is different, I think, than WandaVision, because WandaVision, at least they're giving you enough to like speculate with. Here it's like they're giving you very little, and we're trying to speculate a lot. So like there's a good chance that this is also not the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll see, won't we, once we get an official trailer to Spider-Man No Way Home. That is the official title that we got. We also got a small little teaser trailer, they called it, that Tom Holland posted on his Instagram. And boy, did I watch this video over and over and over again. I had to read everything that was written on that whiteboard. So basically, it started with Tom Holland walking out of the office of John Watts, the director of the Spider-Man movies. And he said he gave us a fake title again. And then him, Jacob, and Zendaya all start arguing about as to why they've all been given fake titles. And Tom is saying, why would he do that? And they're like, you spoil everything. So it makes sense that he gave us fake information. Yeah. And Tom's like, well, they have this very, very funny bit. But I wasn't even really listening to what they were saying. I was paying attention to everything that was going on in the background. So first, I'll start with the whiteboard because it genuinely it seemed like the least important thing that we got out of this teaser trailer that they gave us. So I wrote.
I mean, it gives you the title. I mean, that's a pretty big thing.
It gives us the title, and they've set it up so it looks like some kind of whiteboard that they were using to brainstorm a bunch of different titles on.
Right.
So I wrote down all those like phony, maybe serious titles that they were considering for the
I see
third
Home
Spider-Man.
Alone there.
Yeah, yep.
I
So
didn't really dissect it yet.
so we have Home Sweet Home, Work from Home, Wanna Go Home, No Place Like Home, Can't Find Home, Close to Home, Home Run, and instead of the O in Home Run being the Spider-Man logo, it's a baseball instead, and they're like,
That's
why
funny.
would we do that? And then we have Welcome Home, Home Alone, which they have written next to it copyright issues. Because obviously they can't take that title. That's already a movie. Stay at Home, Zooming Home, I
Oy.
think, but I can't really tell because there's squiggles on it. But I think it says
Yeah.
Zooming Home.
Yeah, I think so.
Homeschooled, that they've written. Aunt May says no. She's not about homeschooling Peter Parker. I wouldn't be either. Homesick, which was my personal theory that was
Right.
the third one was going to be. Webcamming, which has nothing to do with home, but then they have Keep It PG written underneath that. And then they have written down Far From Home as well, with that crossed out with We Did This Already underneath.
Right.
But what I was paying attention to the most was just as Tom Holland walks out of the office, we get a glimpse of a poster behind the three of them, and it is a poster of a comic called Amazing Fantasy number 15 comic.
Oh,
so
cool.
I looked into what this comic is about. It was published on August 1st, 1962, written by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
Love them both.
The only real information that I could get on it without having to physically purchase the comic was before all clones, symbiotes, and civil wars, we see Spider-Man doing what he does best, catching crooks and saving the day. And that was the little
Nice.
tidbit for that comic we saw in the background. Also, just little things that I saw that I don't think really mean anything, but I wrote them down anyway just to be safe. We see a ghost from Pac-Man on the wall behind them. They walk underneath pirate ship flags with like the skull and bones on them. And they walk underneath some snowflakes, some cutout paper snowflakes in the office. So maybe they were just making it look more interesting. Maybe it's some tidbits and clues to what we can see in the movie.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Well, because we know it's taking place during Christmas, so the snowflakes make sense.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought, Dill. So I thought that this little comic book poster that they hid for us in the background was interesting, because I don't think that this movie is going to be, just a typical Spider-Man movie, being that the last one ended with his identity being revealed. So I thought that maybe they're giving us a red herring, maybe because of all the theories and speculations about the alleged Spider-Verse happening. Maybe they're trying to tell us, no, come back down to reality. It's not going to be that extreme. It's really just going to be more about Tom Holland. At least I'm hoping and praying. Maybe it's a red herring. We'll see. Hopefully it's not too long before we get an actual trailer to this one.
Yeah, I think if they do push Black Widow again, or if they push Eternals, I think they'll push them behind Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man's going to be December no matter what, because again, like we said, it does take place during Christmas time, and it does feel like a movie that they want to come around the holidays, where like they know they're going to get butts in the seats, because you have people who are non-Marvel fans who are still going to show up for Spider-Man because it's Spider-Man. Like you have people that won't show up for Eternals just because they haven't heard of it. Only like the actual either diehard MCU people or just people who see a lot of things and think it looks interesting will go see it. But I think the general public who is not necessarily a Marvel fanatic will still see Spider-Man. So I think we're going to see that stay in December. I think if we see other things get pushed, it'll be Shang-Chi or Eternals first before Spider-Man. And because I think, they're really heavily pushing the marketing on this first and foremost. We're getting more stuff centered around Spider-Man than we are Black Widow, which is supposed to come out in like 2 or 3 months, so it's a little alarming, just because I know they have other stuff before Spider-Man that my hope is that it's good. My biggest worry whenever they really don't push something so much advertisement wise is that it's really just not that great, and they just, they've already made it and they still want to make the money from it. So they're not going to, really push for something that's not amazing. But, who knows? It could just be because of COVID and the fact that they don't really know what theaters are going to look like in a few months. I don't know. But we've talked for about 15 minutes almost. So let's jump into WandaVision, because we've got a little less, what should I say? in the past, it's been a lot of, we're at Sword, we're with Vision, we're with Wanda. Here, it's like we're all with Wanda. So I think it's easy to like confine the story this time, because it's very clear, like, this is Wanda's path through her past and her childhood and her young adulthood, becoming this witch, or was she always a witch, or, all this stuff.
Right.
So it's mostly about that, which is interesting. No Sword stuff, no Vision stuff, or, well, not like the Vision we know stuff. So I thought it was a really interesting episode. I thought it was a really good episode. It was a really emotional episode.
Yep. For sure.
Yeah.
Listen, Dill, I liked this episode. I love this episode, but I also hated this episode. Hate is a strong word. I liked this. I love this episode, but I also disliked this episode because I love diving into Wanda's background. I love kind of having this. Like, I feel like if this was her, or like if she had been given her own movie, this would have been, oh my goodness, I just hit my, I'm so sorry for the audio listeners.
It's okay.
It's
like a vibration.
My microphone
it's battle
on. My hands. You can't see me if you're just listening on audio, but I do talk with my hands a lot. I apologize.
We're Italians. It happens.
Exactly.
Mamma mia. Have you seen the guy on TikTok who does like impressions of like famous characters, and they're not at all what the characters sound like? He does like Thanos and Shrek. So like Thanos, he's like Tony baby. And then Shrek, it's Donkey Baby. He's my favorite person to watch on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's all just the same like Italian guy, just with different characters placed into those like Mad Libs boxes. So it's like, it's hilarious. Go check him out. I don't know his name on TikTok, but if you're hearing us, TikTok guy, please let us know in the comments below what your handle is so we can promote you, because you're hilarious.
So anyway, I thought that if she were to be given a movie, this would have been her origin story. I love diving in deeper to Wanda's character, mainly because I loved, this female character flourishing in the MCU. Gotcha. I was trying to piece that sentence together.
All I heard was the fleur.
But I think that this is like a really big deal, I know we've been anticipating this Black Widow movie for a while, better late than never kind of thing. But I really think that it's important that they dive deeper in and they flush out these female characters, because we're not just the damsel in distress anymore, and we're not just the girlfriend or the wife of the superhero. So I think that this was really cool. This is a really fun episode. The reason why I disliked it a lot was just because I feel like the internet came up with way cooler and more interesting solutions and reasons as to why this was all happening, and they gave us a very mundane explanation as to why it's all happening. Me, I thought that it was a little too obvious that Agatha be the villain, so I was kind of hoping for it to be more of a plot twist, someone else kind of pulling the strings behind the curtain. But as we learned from this episode, that it really just has been her, and
she wasn't even the one responsible for the hex. It was Wanda. So she was not even she did not even make this all happen. It was Wanda, solely Wanda. Agnes just came in to be like, yo, how do I use this magic? Because like, I want it, girl.
Exactly.
And I think the thing is, for both those points, I agree with you. I love the backstory. I loved how it was a fleshed out backstory, but we didn't need a whole origin story movie. I think the problem with some of these movies, rewatching them, it's like, the ones that are strictly origin stories just feel like too much of it is spent, developing their characters' backstories, which is great to an extent. But when you've seen it done so many times, it starts to get a little stale. So I liked how this was an interesting method in exploring that backstory, because then you can like already establish a character and then dive into their backstory, rather than like starting with their backstory and then going from there. So I thought this was a really interesting way to change up that origin story formula.
Yeah, totally.
To your second point, I agree that like it was not what I expected it was going to be, but you got to also think, if you're not a Marvel person who does all the research and does all the deep dives into the comics and stuff, maybe you don't see Agatha coming. Maybe you don't see her coming as a villain. Maybe it was only obvious to us because we knew what Agatha Harkness was, and we knew about this Mephisto thing, that we knew there could be someone greater. But I feel like if you're watching just as a regular viewer, like, I think it's an interesting reveal to have Agnes be Agatha, and then go into this whole deep character development with Wanda that leads to her creating this universe, like Agnes says at the end, or Agatha says at the end, out of chaos. It's purely just bursts out of her. It's like sometimes when you just you can't hold back the tears enough, so you cry. Like you're not trying to cry, it just comes out of you. And I think that's also a good way to show that Wanda is not just going crazy, because I think a lot of people were also like, I hate that, like, it's another awesome, powerful female character, and now it's like, oh, it's her emotions, she's going crazy and she's making all this thing happen out of anger, like, oh, this angry female character. And I think this episode was good in showing that no, this all comes from a very sensitive and reasonable place, and this is not just her being angry and wanting to like fuck shit up because she's pissed off. It's because it just literally came out of her and she couldn't control it really in that moment. Because she looks surprised when she comes to this black and white universe. There's a look of like almost shock on her face, like, did I really make this happen? So I don't think it was meticulously planned, and I think a lot of people are happy about that, myself included, that it wasn't this meticulous or malicious plan. It was literally, it just came out of her, and because of how ingrained these sitcoms were in her childhood and her growing up, and it was really her only source of happiness aside from the people who later died. I think it's almost like it was just in her and it came out of her, and it was almost a subconscious, building of this universe. So I do agree. It was disappointing if you were expecting other things, but I think looking at the story, like, if this is the way it is, like, I'm happy with how they executed it. If this was always how it was going to be. And I do feel like they kind of had some sort of inkling that people would be thinking Mephisto. So I did like how right off the bat, they were like, we're going to feed the fly to the rabbit because, we want to stay. Yeah, because I think the part of it being an episodic series, they want you to keep guessing, like, what does this mean? What's happening? They want you to stay engaged, so you watch the next episode. I mean, that's with every TV show. They like to put cliffhangers so you can keep watching. And I feel like if they didn't tease this Mephisto thing, people would maybe take it at face value and just say, yeah, I mean, Agatha's behind it, she's evil, what else? I think having that Mephisto mystery kept us engaged, because now we're too far in where we can't back away from it. We have to see how it ends, but that's not necessarily how they intended to do it either. So I think, I can see why you're disappointed in a sense. I think, we thought it was Mephisto. We're putting that to bed, I think, for now. He could end up showing up somewhere down the line, but I do think this is, I don't think Mephisto's showing up.
I'm pretty much at the point where I don't think Mephisto's involved at all. I think that someone else is involved, and we can get to that later when we talk about the theories. Oh boy, Dill, do I have a theory for you. So,
okay, let's go through the episode.
I'll do my very quick, brief synopsis. Nailed it.
Yes.
It's very, very brief. Agatha forces Wanda to relive her past so she can get to the bottom as to why Wanda created Westview. We find out how it all started and what actually happened to the Vision's body.
Great. Yeah, I mean, the Vision's body is another huge part of this that we haven't even talked about yet, which we will later. Crazy stuff. If you haven't watched the post-credit scene, there was a post-credit scene. Go watch it before you come back here, because there will be spoilers to that post-credit scene. But if you're watching the show, chances are you've probably seen it.
So we start in 1692 in Salem, Massachusetts. If you paid attention in school, you know that this was the time of the Salem witch trials, basically confirming that Agatha was a witch during this time. So not only was she a witch during this time, she has been looking like this and surviving since 1962. 1962. I said that backwards. 1692. Excuse me.
We understand.
Interesting stuff. So she gets put on trial for being a witch, and we find out that it's not her getting put on trial by the Puritans or the regular humans during that time, but it's her coven, because she is being punished for using dark magic. She ends up taking out her entire coven, including her mother, as we find out, and she just walks away before she leaves, before she flies off into the atmosphere. She takes the pin off her mom and just pieces out, and we kind of get a taste of how powerful she really is, because I don't know how many there were, but there were at least 4 witches on each side, so 8 witches all using their powers against her, and also her mother going straight for her heart, and she just took out all of them almost immediately.
I have a question. Do you think it's her actual like mother, like this is her birth mother, or do you think it's like the leader of the cult that or the coven that everyone like addresses as mother? Like, hello, like you are the mother of this group. I mean, I don't think it really matters, but
You know, Dill, I've never been a part of a cult or a coven, so I'm not 100% sure if they
well,
just have like a
yeah.
mama of the
Right.
coven.
Mhm.
From my understanding, I think it would be more interesting if it were her biological mother, because not only did she have the strength to take her out, she took her out without blinking an eye. You know,
Right.
so we're
Well,
we're
that's what made
dealing
me
with
think.
someone
Yeah.
who's really, really dark and
Mhm.
reckless, almost like a Thanos who's willing to pretty much do anything they can to be the most powerful being, it looks
Right.
like.
I'm interested to see if like Agatha ends up surviving this last episode, and if she does, does she become the Thanos of Phase 4? Because I think it's interesting that we were all thinking Mephisto, but then when you see this
Mhm.
episode, you're like, no, Agatha is so powerful that
Yeah.
like we don't need another big bad. Like she could be a villain. She could go head to head, toe to toe with Doctor Strange. She could, end up having some involvement in the Spider Verse thing. I mean, I think when you introduce this element of magic, there were, we had Caecilius and Doctor Strange, who was like a dark wizard, but even he started as a good wizard and then like trailed off. I'm in the process of rewatching some of these for our villains ranking in a few
Yeah,
weeks,
yeah, yeah.
so I haven't gotten to Doctor Strange yet, so it's a little vague. But we see at the end, Mordo is like, no more wizards. So now he's kind of turned dark. I wonder if they're going to incorporate Agatha into that story, the Doctor Strange thing, and maybe team up with Mordo to get rid of sorcerers. Because I wouldn't consider Agatha a sorcerer. She's more of, well, I guess she is a sorcerer, but she's an evil sorcerer.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just a very interesting thing. I hope they don't kill her off in the next episode, because I really do love her character, and I think she's a villain I could get behind, like kind of like Loki or like Thanos, where like you're obviously rooting against them as
Mhm.
someone who's a fan of the Avengers, but also if they do win or if they do succeed or if they're on screen a lot, you're still fascinated enough to watch them and to really like want to see them in full action. So
Right, exactly.
yeah. All right. So
So
what's next?
onwards and upwards, we are in Agatha's basement with
Right.
Wanda's kind of bind in Agatha's powers. She has a short conversation with a rabbit where she says, hey, she does seem pretty shocked to find out who we really are, aren't we?
Yeah.
So who's
Do
this
you
rabbit?
think? Do you think this rabbit could be Ralph that we've been hearing about?
Ralph the
Like
husband?
yeah, I feel like some magic things. I think there was a movie when I was young called like Monster House, or not Monster House, Spooky House or something like that, where like the panther or whatever was actually like a human who had been like transformed into a panther. We see it with Hocus Pocus. Thackeray Binks is like the cat.
Yeah.
Like this could be one of those things. I was just thinking, I was like, because the first thing we see is her holding the rabbit up and like, oh yeah, she knows who we really are. I was like,
Mhm.
maybe. And then she feeds a fly to the rabbit. I have two
Mhm.
theories. Either Mephisto is still a thing, and like these are almost like the Horcruxes, like the fly and Sparky and like all these things dying. Like
I'm laughing.
Mephisto is the rabbit, and she's feeding the rabbit all this power and energy. I think that's a very far-fetched theory. Or the
Maybe.
other one is that she's like this rabbit is a person or someone that she's like got almost like under her, like she's trapped him in this rabbit's body and she's like using him. I don't know. I think there's some connection with the rabbit that I think there
Yeah, I
might be
definitely think
something
that
to
the
it.
more interesting choice would be to make him a person.
Yeah.
Someone, Mephisto, maybe
I
someone
think we're gonna
else,
drop
who
Mephisto.
knows?
Let's not
Let's
mention
just
Mephisto
never
again, just
bring up
because
Mephisto ever again
I am
because
so sorry
he
for anyone
betrayed
who's
us
listening.
all.
For anyone who's listening, we were on this whole Mephisto train, and to be fair, everyone else was thinking it too, who was really diving into the comics lore, even who wasn't diving into the comics lore. Like there were these subtle hints about the devil, and there was a lot of theory that Agatha's not the only one; that there's someone else who's more powerful, kind of overseeing all this, and like that's a fair assumption because usually we have that. Guardians of the Galaxy. Ronan's the villain, but at the end you see Thanos is the one sitting at the chair at the end.
Mhm.
Ultron, Thanos at the end. This bigger villain was always overseeing the smaller stories. So we just assumed there was a bigger villain. We got to stop assuming. I think Phase 4 is going to be where they say everything you thought you knew about the whole Thanos Infinity Stones thing. Like, this is a totally different way of storytelling. We're going to drop those theories now. Focus on who your villain for each thing is. There doesn't have to be an overarching villain behind all of this. And if there is, and we're wrong, fine. But like at this point, I'm not going to even really dive too far into the Mephisto stuff anymore because it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I agree. So Wanda tries to use her powers to get inside Agatha's head, to which Agatha replies, "My thoughts are not available to you, Toots. They never, ever were." So we find out that she was never under just confirming to us that she was never under mind control. And she explains to Wanda, "Oh, you don't see the ancient runes that I have around the room? This room's hexed so that only I can use my powers and no other witch can." And then we find out that Agatha sent the fake Fietro, as she so delicately puts it. And she explains to us that she basically just used him as her puppet so that she could get information out of Westview, information about Westview out of Wanda, rather. Which is why he was so sketchy during the Halloween episode. So I would like to give myself a little pat on the back for being right that this Fietro was being possessed, not by him who shan't be named, but by someone else. So thank you, Dill. I know that I'm right. I know.
I will say to that, like, I think we can also put that to bed, the whole, like, this is the X-Men Pietro. No, I think this is literally just them they wanted to have someone step in as Pietro. They didn't want it to be Aaron Taylor Johnson because that would go against the whole, like, bringing people back to life thing. And then they thought, well, what could be a good nod to the diehard Marvel fans than bringing in Evan Peters? I think it was literally just a casting choice to get us all, like, thinking. Like I said, they want people to watch week to week. So I think this Pietro thing was a fake out, and they just wanted to say, hey, Evan Peters, you want a paycheck? You want to do this? I think if they had used any actor, they could have done the same thing, but using Evan Peters, it's just like that extra little nod, but I don't think it necessarily means anything in regards to X-Men.
I don't know. I'm not ready to get off that train just yet.
Okay.
I think that this last episode will surely confirm whether or not he turns out to be Peter from the X-Men universe.
Right.
But if they leave us hanging on that, then I'm just going to give up altogether because that needs to be confirmed or denied ASAP.
Yes. I do think they need to answer that. Yeah, I don't think they need to address Mephisto at all, especially if he's not in it. They don't need to address it. But I think the things we need addressed, we'll talk at the end a little bit about it too, but we need this Pietro thing addressed. We do. And we also need to address a few little things with Tyler Hayward, but we'll get there. So
yeah. So Agatha uses a fly to show Wanda a few spells. She uses a mind control spell. She changes it into a bird. She changes it back into a fly, and then she just chucks the fly into the rabbit's mouth, to which I giggled a little bit because everyone's like, the fly is Mephisto. And I was like, oh, well, there he goes. Bye, Mephisto.
And nice, like I said, I'm sorry to our viewers who we misled you. But like I said, everyone was thinking
internet really misled everyone because I feel like one video went viral about this Mephisto character, and then everyone just hopped on the train and was like, oh, he's onto something here. So listen, and
that's why I try to steer clear of internet in general, just in terms of theories and stuff. And like Easter eggs, if there's like a number, I'll look into it. Like you said with the poster and the Spider-Man trailer, like you're gonna look into that. But like I'm not looking up like who is Mephisto or like who is the Fly or what is Pietro in this, what is Quicksilver, like who is Agatha Harkness. I knew the name Agatha Harkness before, like I had heard it teased because of the House of M and stuff like that. I don't even know if it's House of M, but like I remember hearing about her even before this all happened, like, oh, this could be coming later down the line. And then when we saw her name was Agnes, I put that together. But a lot of this I'm trying to go in as blind as possible because I don't want to ruin it for myself. Because if there is something big, like this whole White Vision thing, I know we're jumping ahead, but I didn't look into the White Vision at all online because I don't know much about him. I know the visual, I've seen pictures, but I don't know much about White Vision. So I don't really want to know because I don't want that to ruin it for me if there is a very distinct, deliberate homage that the show is doing to the comics. So we'll look for Easter eggs, we'll look at the comics, but I'm really going to try to, like, from now on, not really take anything the comics say I'm taking it all with a grain of salt. I don't think anything the comics said with Mephisto and all that. The MCU is clearly doing their own thing. And yes, there are things that are similarities with the comics, but I'm going to try to just separate it as much as I can going forward.
So then Agatha opens a portal to Wanda's past. Then we go into, we go into a scene with a 10-year-old Wanda and Pietro. It's we learn and kind of figure out that it's the night that her house or apartment got bombed and that her parents passed away. So we find out why Westview was kind of made up of these different sitcoms, because her dad comes home. We find out that he was a bootlegger and that he sells DVDs of American sitcoms. And every Friday night, I'm assuming Friday or Saturday night, maybe, they have a movie night where they pick which show they want to watch. It's Wanda's pick for the week, and she picks the Dick Van Dyke Show. As they're watching the episode, a bomb comes in, destroys their apartment. A second one comes in, but it never detonates. It just kind of sits there blinking very similarly, I'll say, to the toaster light that was blinking. And then we see a young Wanda underneath a bed hiding with her brother. Her hand goes out it almost looks like she's going to use her powers. Agatha pulls Wanda out of the memory and says, "Oh, so you were going to use this on it, right?" And Wanda's like, "No, it was defective. It never went off." And Agatha's not buying that too much.
Are you buying it, Kelsey? Are you buying it?
I'll talk about it at the end, I think.
Here's my thing.
My theory of what I think happened here.
I think Wanda herself literally didn't think she was using magic, but I think maybe there was a subconscious part of herself who was, who maybe out of retaliation. Again, the whole hex is made totally impulsively without her planning it out or even trying. It kind of just explodes out of her. And I think this might be another thing where, in almost like a fear mechanism or in a response to this bomb going off, she kind of let off another hex or something that made the other bomb not go off. And I think that was totally subconscious. I think a lot of this episode was showing that a lot of her powers just kind of are part of her, and she's not necessarily using them in any sort of ill intent. It's just happening to her spontaneously. But that's just my theory. But I know you have the big one, so we'll keep plowing through the episode, and then at the end you can tell me what you're thinking.
So then we get to scene 3. We have another portal, another door to memory come up. We go to a teenage Wanda who's in a Hydra facility getting experimented on by Loki's scepter, which we know houses the Mind Stone. So we find out that every participant or volunteer that has so far been in contact with the scepter has passed away by our 2 scientist guys. Wanda has was experimented on with the scepter, with the Mind Stone. The stone kind of presents itself almost to her, and this bright light shows. She sees the Mind Stone. It glows yellow. She's just staring in it, taking in it all its glory. And then we see a figure float down to her, or not down to her, but kind of just like appear just midair. So who do we think that is, Jill?
I mean, if you zoom in, I did pause it and kind of zoom in. It is her. I think it's her as the Scarlet Witch, in that like traditional Scarlet Witch outfit with the headpiece.
Right.
I was assuming it might have just been like one of those things where you just kind of see a part of yourself in the future. It was like a vision, not vision. I shouldn't say vision because that's the name of vision. Like this looking into the future. Again, like I don't want to look into it too much just because I don't really know. I just saw it and I thought that was just like a thing like, oh, you are the Scarlet Witch. Like it's the universe telling her that and her really not knowing what that means until obviously Agatha tells her, you're the Scarlet Witch. I thought it was just literally a way to show like this is who you are. I don't know.
No, yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's like a future Wanda, or not, maybe not even necessarily Wanda, but I feel like it's this uh being, this entity of the Scarlet Witch who kind of chose to inhabit
Mm,
Wanda per se.
yeah, that's a
So
good point.
then she sees all of this power, she passes out due to exhaustion from it, probably. Um, and then we cut to Wanda being held in a cell. She's watching the Brady Bunch, and
Yes.
the tape, notice that when the scientists go back to watch the tape that was recording her while she was encountering the scepter, it totally cuts out, so they can't see what actually happened.
And I think this is a little throwback to the first like 2 or 3 episodes where you see these cuts happen just in the broadcast.
Mhm.
Either Wanda rewinds it or it cuts. I think that is almost like uh, oh my god, I like lost my train of thought. Yeah, I think it's again going off what I said about like the hex, kind of like she protects herself unknowingly, like it's almost
Yeah.
subconscious. The
Yeah,
same
yeah,
thing
yeah.
with the hex itself. Building the hex around Westview is almost a subconscious thing. It's all purely out of just a burst of emotion, not intended or malicious about it. I think this is another one of those scenarios. I think it's one of those things where Wanda subconsciously cuts people off from seeing certain things in her life, not meticulously, but it's just like she has this ability to just like unknowingly or subconsciously just like cut tapes or cut broadcasts or
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
keep people out of those parts of her life.
So then we cut to a new memory where she's at the Avengers compound. Scene 4, she has this
Oh
beautiful moment with Vision. This has
yeah,
been my favorite scene of the entire uh,
MCU.
series.
Oh okay.
Maybe not the MCU, but definitely this series. This is
I think
such a
it's one of the most
beautiful.
emotional in the MCU for sure.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
think it has that heart. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. So she's watching Malcolm in the Middle in her room. Vision comes in and they just have this beautiful conversation about grief and love, and she's trying to explain to him that like it just feels like this wave is washing over her constantly, and every time she tries to stand back up it knocks her back
yeah,
down. And Vision's just, you just see like where their how deep their relationship went. They
hmm
understood each other on such like deep emotional levels that it makes the fact that Wanda had to go through losing him twice that much more
yeah,
heartbreaking and emotional. So Wanda
yeah. It is just a beautiful scene.
yeah, absolutely. And to the point where Wanda, present day Wanda, who's traveling through her memories with Agatha, says, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is way too much. This is why I invented Westview in the first place, was so I didn't have to deal with all of this. So then, scene 5, we're at Sword. A door to Sword appears, and the news. Oh, right. So then we see what really transpired when Wanda went to go get Vision, because Agatha's like, this is where you were. This is what you want to do next. You wanted to get him back. So what did you do? And Wanda's like, well, I wanted to get him back. So she marches herself through Sword. Um, up on top, I didn't know if you noticed this still, but they have news reports playing
Yeah,
of all the
the
families
missing families
and
and
reunions that are happening around the world
right,
from the blip. So we know that this is like very, super, super recent
fresh.
when
Yeah.
Wanda was going to do this.
I
She's
assume it was the day of. Like, I literally think she got blipped back and was like, "All right, I'm gonna go fight Thanos." She fought Thanos and then was like, "All right, I'm gonna go do this thing." Or do you think she did this before she fought Thanos? What do you think? No, it had to have
um
been after because she makes the hex right after that. Never mind, it was after.
I think it's,
I
yeah, I
figured
was
it out.
gonna
Yeah,
say, I'm like, I don't think that she like dusted back into life on Wakanda and was like, I must go to the sword facility. I think she was like, no, I think I gotta go kill this guy
right.
because I hate him.
Yeah, because then right
So
after she goes to Westview, yeah, yeah. It's interesting trying to put the timeline together, especially because now we've gotten like Far From Home, which goes past this time, and now
yeah,
yeah, trying to
exactly.
backtrack. Yeah,
So she gets to the front desk. Hayward sees her through a camera, allows the front desk people to buzz her in. She's like, no, I got it. So she just blasts the doors open, marches her way to
yeah,
Hayward's office.
yeah,
And he's like, hey, like, you asked to see this. This is what it is. This is what we're doing here. And she looks down to them just completely tearing Vision's body apart. They're, experimenting on it, looking at it, doing all this stuff. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't handle this. She blasts her way down in there, and she has this, just get you right in the feels, where she hovers her hand over where the Mind Stone would be, and she says, I can't feel you, which is obviously a callback to Infinity War, where when we see them in Edinburgh, and he's like, oh, I'm having difficulties with the stone, and she feels him, and she's like, hey, all I can feel is you. And then we cut to obviously the Battle of Wakanda, where he's like, you can never hurt me, I just feel you. And now she is with his body
I didn't
again,
even think of those. I
reunited.
didn't even think of that moment.
That is
Oh
the
man.
first thing I thought of. I was like, oh my God, they are calling me back. They're taking me back to the battlefield of Wakanda, where he's just like, you can never hurt me, which I found out today. And I don't know how credible this is, because this was such a well done moment in Infinity War between Wanda and Vision, that apparently in some interview, Wanda, or Elizabeth Olsen rather, said that moment was improvised. They told Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, do what you think the characters would do. And
that's beautiful.
They just came up with Paul Bettany came up with the, you can never hurt me, it'll be all right, I just feel you. All of that moment, I'm like, so I don't want to, discredit the actors at all, but I'm almost taking it with a grain of salt until I see the interview itself, where Elizabeth Olsen says that it was improvised. I'm going to take it with a grain of salt, just because it was so well done. Honestly.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway, whether you loved or hate this episode, I loved it. It seems like you had some parts of it that disappointed you, obviously, but I think the main thing that we can all agree on is that this acting between Elizabeth Olsen in all her scenes, but then also with Paul Bettany, and also Catherine. Oh my God, I'm blanking on her name. Catherine Hahn, right?
Hahn.
Yeah. Wow, I don't know how I blanked on that, and I'm a theater person. Yeah. Seeing that the acting in this show is so good, and I know we've seen in the past with Emmys, they don't really go for a lot of the big commercial stuff in terms of acting awards. I don't think we've seen The Walking Dead get any acting nominations. I don't think we saw Mandalorian get any acting nominations. I would love to see someone get nominated from this. I don't know, just because I know it's a very niche show to some viewers, especially maybe the older voting body. But man, Elizabeth Olsen is just acting her ass off in the show, and it's beautiful to see. Yeah. So
they definitely, I feel like Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, they have such a deep understanding of their characters now, and it's so beautiful to watch them. So then Wanda travels to Westview. We see some of the residents that we know and love from the sitcom episodes. We see Jones putting up a flyer for piano lessons. To later, then we know that he does play piano for the talent show that they have.
Right.
And he has this sweet little moment where Wanda makes his piano cardboard that does not reveal Vision's powers, and he goes, "That was my grandma's piano." I'm like, oh, poor Jones.
Poor guy.
We see Deborah Jo Rupp just sitting outside of a cafe. We see the mailman, who everyone was kind of suspicious of, and he just turned out to be a pizza delivery guy. And Wanda goes to a foundation of a house. It looks like it was either knocked down or not built yet, but it's definitely very decrepit and disheveled. Yeah. And she
Kelsey, real quick, what did you say the delivery guy was carrying? I missed it.
Oh, he was just being a pizza delivery guy. Okay.
Sorry. For you really all your listeners, go check out the video, because that was funny. All right, keep going, Kelsey. Sorry.
So she gets to this foundation. She unfolds a property deed where Vision has left her a note to grow old in -V, and it with a heart around it.
Yeah,
and
that crushed me too.
This just absolutely breaks her. She's so sad that her magic just kind of explodes out of her. She builds a house. She takes over all of Westview. It turns into a 1950s style set. And she creates, and then we find out that since she didn't actually steal the body from out of Sword, we see her just create Vision from herself.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because the entire time I've at least been asking, how is this Vision being powered? What's this thing in his head? If it's not the Mind Stone, if Wanda didn't go back and get the Mind Stone
Right.
to get this Vision back up and running, then where did it come from? It totally makes sense that since she got her powers from the Mind Stone, or at least her powers were enhanced by the Mind Stone
Right.
at the very least, it totally makes sense that she'd be able to, build Vision back up again.
Definitely.
Which
I did
thought
get
was
that too.
incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And we will talk at the end about that whole Tyler Hayward, because we kind of breezed past it, but the whole Tyler Hayward, what he says to Wanda before she breaks in, and then like going back to like the post credit scene, like seeing how all this connects.
Yep.
In terms of the whole taking the body thing, because this whole time we thought she stole the body from Sword, but now it's revealed that when you see her make Vision, it's like, oh, she never stole the body, she created it, which then led us to believe that Tyler was lying to Monica when he showed the tape back of her stealing.
Mhm.
The video
Yeah.
cuts out right before
Yep.
she takes him, and it's because she never took him.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So then we're back in present day with Agatha and Wanda, and Agatha has Tommy and Billy by their necks using her pad or her magic is choking them out almost.
Right.
And Agatha says, you're not supposed to be, oh no, you're supposed to be a myth. This is chaos magic. You are the Scarlet Witch, which is the first time we ever hear someone say Scarlet Witch in the MCU. Incredible moment. And then,
which is funny because I've heard people say Scarlet Witch all the time. I just like took it at I just like put two and two together, but it really is never addressed. They never say it. It's always just been Wanda. Really cool.
So then, of course, we have our end credit scene. We're at Sword, and we find out that they have rebuilt Vision's body, and that all they needed to power it was a little magic from the source, which they pan over to the drone that Wanda threw out of Westview back to the Sword agents from the previous episode, and we see a white Vision coming to life. Surely to be the antagonist of the epic battle, I'm assuming we're gonna get in the last episode.
So a lot to unpack.
Here.
The whole Vision thing. So this kind of goes back to what you were saying about the Mind Stone. Is that because Wanda her powers came, it looks like, from the Mind Stone, or at least enhanced by the Mind Stone. She has the ability to bring him back, and I think it's interesting. We're going to go back to this Tyler scene where before she breaks in, he does mention to her something along the lines of like, well, are you here to bring him back to life since you're the only one who can do that, or something along the lines of that. And that really just gave me pause for a second, because I was like, wait, does he know that she has these Mind Stone powers that she could bring him back? And is this does he maybe want her to try to steal him in order to get that magic from her? So this is making me think, like, if he's aware that she can bring him back, or her power can bring him back, I'm wondering if like this was his intention all along, was to try to get Wanda, kidnap Wanda, or find a way to harness Wanda's magic to then bring it to the Vision, or if Wanda was just an obstacle in him getting to the Vision. Because at the end he's like, all we needed was her magic. We've tried this so many times. So he's been trying for 5 years, because that was when the snap happened, for 5 years trying to get this Vision working, and it hasn't worked. Now all of a sudden Wanda's magic comes, and that's it. So the whole reason he's been trying to get Wanda is not because he's threatened by her. I think it's that he needs her magic for Vision. So him sending the drone in, I don't even think it was to kill her. I don't even think it was to hurt her. I think it was just to get her magic so they can bring Vision. And now it's going to be, all right, now we need to stop Wanda and Agatha, so now we can have complete control of Vision. Because now it's like, we needed her to get Vision brought back, but now the Vision's brought back, we need to get rid of her so she won't mess with Vision, so he can be ours.
Right, totally.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because Tyler Hayward, we've known he was sketchy from the beginning, but he is, I think, the real villain. As much as Agatha is more powerful and more menacing, and she killed the dog, she's got the kids strung by their necks, her objective is very clear. She just wants to know how Wanda has this magic. She's not even necessarily trying to stop Wanda. She just wants the magic. And I think it's interesting because Tyler is actively trying to stop Wanda and to use her power against her with this new Vision. I think Tyler's the main villain of this whole thing. I'm not saying he's Mephisto, obviously, but he is Oh,
Take a
oh,
shot every time we mention Mephisto.
he is. I don't have a drink. Actually, I do. I have water. I'll take a nice swig of water.
As I just did as well. You think I'm swinging back vodka right now?
I hope not. This is a PG. Actually, no, we curse, so it's explicit. So you can drink whatever you want to drink on the show. I don't care. It's Monday morning though, so like
you'd end up on the floor if you actually did that. Especially with this
Monday
episode.
morning.
We were like, we're gonna stop bringing up Mephisto. Cut to us an hour later. So Mephisto.
No. So anyway, I think Tyler might be the main villain here. Like, I think Agatha, as much as she is obviously bad in the sense that she's killed people, she's using her magic in a negative way. Her ultimate goal is just to be able to understand how Wanda got this magic. It's almost like she's almost wanting to work with Wanda. I think she almost wants Wanda to like join her and be like, show me the magic so I can be the most powerful. Because I think Agatha realizes she can't stop Wanda because she realizes that this epic legend, she didn't think it existed because it's this huge legend. Like, she's not going to try to go toe to toe to Wanda, so she needs Wanda to try to almost harness some of that magic and give it to her. She is a villain. Yes, she is a villain, but I think because her intentions are clear, I think Tyler is the villain I'm more concerned with, because Tyler's the one we really don't know what his real intentions are, and we don't know what he's willing to do and what his end goal is. Whereas Agatha, at least it's, I want the magic, I want to know how you did it.
Right, exactly. That was like the biggest thing that I walked away from this episode was like, okay, so now we've kind of realized Agatha's motivation, because I was like, if she is the villain of all of this, why just sit there and wait and play along with the games and the dressing up and the costumes and go through all this stuff? Like, why go through all this if her main goal is to just kill Wanda? Which is, now we know that it's not to kill Wanda. It's really to just like kind of understand how this all came about, where she got this magic. And I think the next steps for Agatha is going to be, okay, so come join me, because you have the chaos magic, which I looked into and can tell you more about if you'd like.
Yeah, in just a sec. I do agree. I do agree. I think Agatha's not a hero, but I do think there could be some sort of joining together where she's like, listen, I just want to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. And like, I think once this other vision comes in, I think the true test is going to be, is Wanda willing to kill that vision? Or maybe there's going to be a way to kind of bring that vision's awareness back. I think it's interesting because I really don't know if this is going to end with Vision being a character anymore, if this white Vision is completely antagonistic, if the end thing is going to be Wanda having to kill Vision one last time, or is it going to be her trying to use Vision to bring him back? I think the whole point of this series is just to show Wanda how to cope with her grief, and I don't think it would make sense to have Vision at the end of the day just be fully functioning the way Vision was again. I think the whole point of the show is going to be having Wanda embrace her, not embrace, but recognize what has happened and come to terms with it.
Right, exactly.
So I do think it's going to end with Vision having to like just not exist in the end completely, but who knows? What were you going to say about chaos magic? Let's hear it.
So chaos magic is basically, it's so powerful that it's said to be like, it's supposed to be non-existent. It's said to be like a myth, as Agatha said, within the magic, within the wizarding world, if you will.
Well, we can't use that term.
Crossing
that's a copyright
franchises here. Basically, it's this form of magic that can manipulate, warp, reconstruct the very fabric of existence and reality. So it's this very, very powerful form of magic that Wanda possesses. And I think I know kind of why and how she does, because I had to listen. I walked away from this episode thinking I gotta look back into everything that I thought about Scarlet Witch. I have to kind of like start from square one again. I have to go back to the drawing board. So I went back into my handy dandy Marvel Encyclopedia,
right?
Who is a gift from my friend James. Shout out to James. Thank you, James.
Yeah, James. Woo!
And the first thing, so I turned to her page, and the first thing that it says underneath Scarlet Witch is the magical mistress of the Hex power, which I should have realized from day one what was going on here. And basically, the way it's described in the book, how Wanda kind of got her powers. So to answer your question from before, Dale, I do think that Wanda had powers before she encountered the Mind Stone. And this is why.
I agree.
Because chaos magic was used and was only used by one other being in the comics, in the magical world, by this guy named Chthon. I believe that's how you pronounce the name. It's literally
I've never heard that name, so I would not be able to tell you.
I mean, it's spelled Chthon. And I Googled it, and I listened to a robot lady say it, and she said it as Chthon. So that's what I'm going with.
Great.
So
Thank you, Siri.
Chthon, or this, I believe he's also referred to as like this elder god, something like that. And he used this chaos magic to take over Earth. And that was his whole thing with it. And this happened, years before Wanda was even existed. So he ends up not being able to take over Earth. He fails, and he dies and is buried in the birthplace of Wanda Maximoff. Somehow, spiritually, they get in contact with one another, him and Wanda, and he kind of passes over almost this power of chaos magic.
Nice.
Later on in the comics, Agatha Harkness becomes a mentor to Wanda now that she harnesses this power to control it and to use it. Because like I was saying before, I think Agatha's next goal is going to be you and I need each other, because you have what I want and I have what you need, which is basically someone to tell you how to control this so something like Westview doesn't happen again, or something even better or more evil can
but that's the problem, though, is that I think Agatha is very clearly, like, in the beginning with the Salem witch thing, like, she is definitely like the bad guy there. Like, she's not, I don't know if she necessarily can harness this power for good. I honestly think Agatha could lead it even worse. I don't know.
Well, when I say like to make sure Westview doesn't happen again, I mean so like something as innocent as Westview doesn't happen again. Right. I think that the next time, what she's saying is, the next time Wanda uses this chaos magic, it should be purposeful. It should be to hurt someone or for revenge or something like that. Like, it shouldn't just be this accident of like, okay, you made this magical world with costumes, big whoop. You don't even know the extent of what you could be doing. You could be taking over planets right now, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that the whole scene in the beginning where she's like, oh, you don't recognize these ancient runes and this book that I have that they didn't explain at all and didn't reference at all in this episode, and we were all like, the book from Doctor Strange.
I was like that. That was me. That was all me going crazy.
Other people on the internet said that as well. But I think that the purpose of that scene was to be like, I've been schooled and I have the knowledge of witchcraft and all this stuff. It's like, she's basically saying like, I'm a graduate of Hogwarts and you've never even heard of it. So I can totally mold you with all the knowledge that I know. And all the lives that she's must have lived, being that she's from, 1692, I can totally make you into like this unstoppable force kind of thing. So I think my prediction is, I think that you called it from the beginning early on, Dill, that Wanda is going to be the next villain of the MCU. Because, and I'll tell you why, because...
That was an early theory for me, but okay,
that
go
was
ahead.
Way early, way in the beginning. Literally, episode 1, you said that, and I'm finally jumping on board with that theory, because if this Chthon guy exists, and he's kind of like been the Mephisto of all the theories, and I know I brought it up again. I'm sorry. But really, I think that we were all looking at Mephisto for whatever reason, when really we should have been looking at this guy, because he was really, we wouldn't have been able to look at him until this episode and this mentioning of chaos magic, because he was the first person to kind of possess it and harness it. And he ends up taking possession of Wanda. And you know who saves her? Guess. I want you to guess. I want you to guess who saves Wanda out of the possession of Chthon. I'll give you
Vision.
I'll give you some time to think about it. No.
It's either Vision or Monica Rambeau.
No, it's Doctor Strange.
Okay, yeah, because we know this is leading to the Multiverse
Okay,
of
well,
Madness, so it would make sense.
was expecting like a way bigger reaction. I feel like I cracked the case.
Well, no, because
and
we know
you
it's
were just like,
we
yeah.
know it's all leading to Doctor Strange, though. Like we know this is all leading to Doctor Strange, and we know she's in Doctor Strange. So my question was: is she working with Doctor Strange, or is she the villain in Doctor Strange? And that's why in episode 1, I was like, oh, maybe they're setting her up to be the new villain.
This is what I'm saying. I think that she is the villain of Doctor Strange.
That would make
I
sense
was
because
like
we don't
really
have.
impressed with my research and my
No,
theories,
I'm very impressed
and
with.
you
I'm very
just like
impressed with.
blew it off. You were like, yeah, and I thought
No,
you were gonna be
no.
like, whoa.
No, that is a
mind
great theory.
blown.
That is a great theory. I think it's just because, again, like you said, like because we know she's in Multiverse of Madness, like the Doctor Strange stuff. A lot of people are saying Doctor Strange is the big cameo in the last episode that Paul Bettany was talking about. But the thing is, if he's the big cameo, like we know she's already going to be in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. That like I wouldn't be surprised to see him there. And that's like Thor Ragnarok when at the end of Doctor Strange, when you see that post-credit scene with Thor and the beer should have been a much bigger thing, but because Doctor Strange was announced to be in Thor Ragnarok, it's like, yeah, he's in the next movie, he's in the next Thor movie. It would make sense that Thor's here. So that's the only reason I wasn't like going crazy, is because we know her and Doctor Strange are going to be working together in the next Marvel thing.
I don't think they're working together. I think that they're
in the same movie
battling
together.
it
That's
out.
what I meant. Maybe. Who
Also,
knows? But I do think
big...
I'm just going to say, with all this character development, though, to make her the villain at the end of the day, I feel like they've done such a good job establishing that she does not have any ill intention, and that even when she kicks Monica out of the Hex, it's totally just reaction, like impulse reactions and subconscious, and like she's just trying to protect her happiness, and because she can't grieve fully properly grieve a Vision's death. And I think to make her the villain at the end of the day, like I would get it. Maybe she'd be an antagonist, but I would hate that to be the next step. But she might.
Listen, I totally could get behind her being the villain, because at the end of the day, like when she like the line she says to Thanos, "You took everything from me." Like he really took everything from her. Agatha said it best: parents dead, brother dead, Vision dead. What do you do now? It's like, this is like the recipe for a villain right here, right now. So I can totally understand it. I don't think that it diminishes, because really, what character development has she gone through when really all she did was build up? She didn't really go through any character development because she didn't deal with anything. She didn't work through anything. She built up an entire false reality that she could live in with her dead husband, lover. She created this whole false reality for herself. So she wasn't really working through everything. And now that she has this like evil mentor figure, like telling her like, hey, I can give you everything you've ever wanted, I can so see her just falling into, and plus we also have to consider that nobody, like, as we saw from WandaVision and, after Endgame and everything, Paul Rudd, we see Captain Marvel, and don't we see them together at the end of Endgame? Or am I making this up in my head?
Who?
Maybe I'm thinking at the Captain Marvel, Monica, and Marie.
For what? What are you talking about?
Like when they bring everyone back and they're reuniting with their families. I know we see a shot of Wakanda.
We see Paul Rudd with his daughter.
Yes.
And then we see Black Panther with his mom and his sister.
Yeah. So we get all these different moments, and nobody thinks to like check up on Wanda. She literally lost everything. Vision wasn't able to come back. She didn't have a loved one to reunite with when everyone came. She fought this guy, but really it wasn't because she was like, oh, I'm fighting to get my loved ones back. She knew that even if the snap happened, Vision wouldn't have come back. And so really her fighting, her whole purpose being there was not to bring anyone back, because she had no one to bring back. She wasn't going to bring her brother back. He died way before the snap happened. Her parents weren't going to come back. It was just pure revenge and pure like heartbreak and emotion, like that.
I can get behind that.
Why she was there. So that's and plus there's a very interesting storyline called M Day. I don't know if you've looked into this at all, but there's a storyline where basically, you know, she goes crazy and uses her powers, and basically there's this incident that happens called M Day where she takes away all of mutants, and she takes it and like she wipes out basically all of mutants. So I think that would be that would not only tie in the X-Men universe like almost a like little too perfectly, but it would also just be something really interesting to look at if one day everyone just woke up and just like didn't have their powers anymore, you know?
Yeah, I think there could be. I definitely think the villain thing could happen. I'm thinking of. I know we're crossing universes, but Star Wars. Star Wars.
Like,
we
what
have.
Are you getting right now?
No, just enhancing the set as we go. I'm Wanda. I'm building my own hex of props behind me. Yeah. So Star Wars, you have Anakin who literally loses a lot in his life. I don't. Have you seen Star Wars, Kels?
I get the gist.
Okay.
Darth Vader's Luke's father.
Yeah. Okay. So that's enough for. Okay. If you know that, then I can tell you the rest. So Anakin loses his mom, and like that's kind of what sets him on this darker path. You know, he never has really dark thoughts until he loses his mom, and that sets him on a dark path. And then the next movie, he's seduced by this emperor, this chancellor, who is basically luring him to the dark side, and that's when he goes to the dark side. And then you have the entire original trilogy. He is the villain. He is Darth Vader. And then it's not until the last movie of the original trilogy where Luke finally breaks through to him, and he has this moment with his son, and then he dies. So it's like one of those things where I think this could be kind of going along the same path, where this is Wanda was this Anakin who lost everything she had, and then finally Agatha is this Emperor Palpatine coming in to seduce her to the dark side, and then Doctor Strange is almost going to be like the either Luke or Obi-Wan who's going to try to like get her to come to her senses, and then eventually we will obviously see her be a hero at the end of the day, because I think that's the thing is like I don't think she's going to just be a villain to the end. I think she might be a villain, and then they might have to like pull her back to reality, and maybe that will end up being her demise, is when she's breathing her last breaths. Maybe she realizes I messed up, or it could be a whole scenario where, oh, I've changed now. Now I realize I did a bad thing, and now I'm a hero for the rest of the MCU. I just don't. I think she's such an interesting character. I just hope they do the right thing with her. I don't know what that is. It could be a villain. It could be not. As long as they justify it and it makes sense and it just enhances her character. I was thinking it originally. I wasn't thinking it recently, but you bring up a good point. She could be the villain of Doctor Strange, and that would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say the next villain of the MCU, rather, because I don't think it would be for long. I think that maybe it would just be a Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because like I said, Doctor Strange ends up being the guy who saves her from this possession of this evil guy who Chthon. So
but you also have Mordo, who is at the end of Doctor Strange. He was the one who was like, no more sorcerers, and he's in the next movie too. So he's obviously going to have some sort of antagonistic presence there too. Or it's going to be like one of those I'm trying to think of the right movie. I can't think right now, but like one of those villains that's like there in the first scene, and then like he's dealt with like early on in the movie, and then it turns out there's a bigger villain. And like Mordo, or he's gonna be working with Wanda, or there's gonna be two villains, and then we're getting into Spider-Man 3 territory. I don't know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be interesting. Any last like big theories or anything?
So I did want to bring up the big old cameo that everyone's expecting in the last episode.
Let's talk about it.
I think that we have been trolled, and I think that
I think we have too.
Trolled the absolute fuck out of us.
I think Paul Bettany is the cameo. I think White
Paul
Vision.
Bettany, because he went off on this tangent about how excited he's been waiting his whole life to work with this actor. He loved working with this actor. I think the actor in question is Paul Bettany himself playing White Vision.
Kelsey, this is exactly what I was thinking too. As soon as it happened, I went, this is a huge reveal. Because like I've been saying, if they save the cameo for the last episode, it's going to be like the Mandalorian thing where it's just the whole episode is everyone talking about that cameo. It's what happened when Evan Peters showed up. Everyone was just talking about Evan Peters. Then no one was talking about the Sparky stuff and the kid stuff. everyone was talking about Evan Peters. If they do a cameo in the last episode, they have to do it right away at the beginning. If they save it to the end, I feel like it ruins the finale to an extent. Not completely, but I think it would really take away from the bigger picture. I think doing it here at the end of the episode was where I thought the cameo was going to come. And sure enough, we get this reveal of the White Vision at the end of the episode. Is this a cameo? Could it be? And it might be. I mean, Paul Bettany, actor he's wanted to work with his entire life, he's never acted with himself. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so
I mean,
think
a lot
that
of
we
actors
either got
have.
trolled, or I think that it could possibly be if it's Peter Maximoff from the X-Men universe. A lot of people were also thinking maybe like an Ian McKellen Magneto comes in to kind of like save Peter, almost bring them back to their multiverse.
That would be interesting. But also at the same time, again, like I think the point of the Pietro thing is like to say, hey, it's the same actor from the X-Men, but we're not there yet. We're just trolling you. Like, this is who we chose to cast. I don't know. If Magneto does show up, though, that would be pretty cool, though. Like, I think that'd be
dope, too.
Yeah. A lot of theories, a lot of possibilities, but I like that whole, like, Paul Bettany trolling.
Also, Dill, there's a theory that we're getting not just one more. We're not just getting one more episode. We're going to get 2 more.
Here's the thing. A few weeks ago, people were saying the last 3 episodes are all going to be an hour long. They're not.
They're not. The internet
my thought
has constantly failed me throughout this entire series. That's all
my thought, and we'll take note of this because, like, we just started this podcast with this show, and this is a very high speculation based show. For Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we're going to be a little less like deep theory based. We're going to be a little bit more like, what did we see and what do we think about it and what are some Easter eggs, rather than like, well, what do we think this means for, is Falcon really Falcon? Right. I don't think it's going to have to be that deep. It just happens to be that the show is so deep and so different, and that's what I really liked about WandaVision, is just how different it is from the rest of the MCU. What were we talking about though?
If we're getting 2 more episodes.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening. I think if anything, we'll get like maybe like a 70 or 80 minute episode, and it'll be like almost as if you were to have like, sometimes when shows have big finales, they'll do like a part 1, part 2, air it on the same night. Like Michael's episode when he left the office, I believe they aired 2 episodes that night to say goodbye to Michael on The Office. I think it might be one of those things where like it acts as 2 episodes, but like it's going to be, because it's on Disney Plus, it's just going to be episode 9, and it'll just be a longer episode as if we were watching 2 episodes in one. I don't think we'll get 2 separate episodes. I don't think it's going to be like, I don't think we're going to have this episode and then they're going to be like, we got another one coming for you next week. I think we are going to be done with it next week. Whether or not that means 2 episodes in 1 week, I don't think we're going to get a 10th week of this, because A, we have a podcast to do in 2 weeks that we have scheduled, and that would screw up our schedule. And B,
how dare they?
If that happens, what we'll do is we'll have a Marvel-ous Movie Monday episode talking about WandaVision finale, and then we'll have another Villains episode drop that day. You'll get a twofer. But I don't think that'll happen.
The reason why that I even bring this up was because something that I forgot to mention earlier in the episode was that people realized that the property deed with the heart written around it and Vision's little note turned into the calendar that we see throughout the series, which is why it has a heart on the first episode when they have the meal with Mr. Hart, and much later on in the Malcolm in the Middle themed episode, it ends with the calendar with the name WandaVision and a heart around the 10th. Now, I looked into it as, 2021 time. So our time currently right now. So I went through the months to see which the next time the 10th fell on a Friday, which is in September. So I thought that maybe they were teasing, look on to September 10th this year. Other people looked into it as in 2024. They went to the year 2024 and figured out that in the year 2024, the year that Westview is currently living in, March 10th actually falls on a Friday in 2024, which is why people thought that we're not just getting the last episode this week, that we're also getting it a grand finale, if you will, on the 10th. So
I don't know.
That's the only reason why I bring that up.
I'm just checking my AirPods battery, making sure it's good, because we have some Easter eggs to talk about, because we always save those for last. So theory talk is done. We're done with Mephisto. We're thinking maybe Wanda will be a villain, maybe she won't.
Good riddance,
We're gonna see something with Tyler Hayward and Vision. I'm just gonna grab my laptop a little closer because I'm not wearing my glasses or contacts. Okay, so these 2 episodes that we see or 3 episodes that we see in this bigger episode, we see the Dick Van Dyke Show, Malcolm in the Middle, Brady Bunch. All these episodes have some sort of connection to this series. So the Dick Van Dyke episode, which is titled "It May Look Like a Walnut," basically the premise is that Dick Van Dyke's character Rob and his wife Laura, played by Mary Tyler Moore, stay up watching this scary sci-fi movie, and it really the wife Laura tries to ignore it because it freaks her out. And then in the movie, there are basically these aliens that come to Earth and disguise themselves to slow down humanity's development by feeding them walnuts that eventually kind of take over their brains and like remove some limbs and like take away our creativity and our thumbs, it says. So like they start like messing with the humans by feeding them these walnuts, and that's like you see that clip of him opening the door and all the walnuts fall out and she's like sitting there. Like it's a funny, I don't think it's anything you have to read into too much, but it is kind of this idea of this outer presence trying to like affect reality and morph reality and infiltrate reality, which I thought was interesting. Then you have the Brady Bunch episode, which is from season 1, called Kitty Carryall is Missing. It's basically Cindy Brady's beloved Kitty Carryall doll goes missing, and she blames her brother and says, "You stole it from me," and they have this big fight, and then they found out that the dog took it. So again, this could be something to do with Sparky, how like the kids were like, "Hey, what happened to Sparky? Where'd he go?" And it turns out that Agatha had it all along. It was Agatha all along. It was the dog all along. Some sort of connection there. And just the idea of, siblings. That we've seen siblings are a big trend with Wanda and Pietro, and then again with Billy and Tommy, who again, we should talk a little bit at the end, like what's up with Billy and Tommy, what's going to happen with their characters, because we know they grow up to be Wiccan and Speed in the comics, but is this the last we're going to see of them? Do they exist outside the Hex? We'll talk about that in a sec. The last episode was when they're watching Malcolm in the Middle. You see Bryan Cranston's character's building a deck and it collapses on him. That was actually alluded to in the episode intro for the 3rd episode, where Vision is building a swing set and it collapses in front of him. So just a nice little homage, or in that case, foreshadowing to what would come with Malcolm in the Middle. A few more Easter eggs, actually just one. I looked into the Latin that Agatha was speaking when she was doing the charms. One of the things she said was "Mors monstru naturale," which translates to "natural death is a monster." So yeah, I think it means that she's like, natural death is a monster. We must kill purposefully with our magic or whatever. I just thought it was interesting because again, she's not a hero, obviously, but we know she's not necessarily trying to kill Wanda, but she might be trying to team up with Wanda. And if she is this bigger villain for either Phase 4 or for another few movies, or even just for the finale, we know that to her, natural death is a monster. So those are the Easter eggs. I mean, a lot of the Easter eggs were very blatant. Like the videos in the briefcase were the videos, were the sitcoms that have been parodied. Like we got that. We understood that. So, and then the Scarlet Witch reveal at the end, obviously. Do you have any Easter eggs, or no? Do you want to just jump into?
I just pointed out a couple of things that I noticed when Wanda took over Westview and it changed into our 1950s format. So the only two things that I noticed were that there's a billboard for super paper towels that changes into the Lagos paper towels, and the the slogan for the paper towels is make cleaning up a snap. Love that. And then the Cornet Theater says Tannhausen Gate, and it says put the fun in dysfunction, and it changes to when Wanda takes over, now showing Big Red, which we know from the 2nd episode. That's a comic that references Vision, and it says,
and it's the gum he was chewing when it got caught.
And it says kidnapped in color. So those are the 2 movies that are being shown. So I think it's just a nod at Vision's comic, and also the fact that all of Westview just literally got kidnapped per se. So those are the only two things that I really looked into. What did we say we were going to get to next? Oh,
Tommy and Billy. Like, so what do we think is going on with? Do we think they are gonna exist without the Hex? Do we think? What do you think?
Monica did say when she came out of the Hex, Darcy was asking her a bunch of questions like, "Oh, like what was it like in there?" And Monica was adamant to say that, like, "Oh no, those two babies she had are very real. Like everything in there is very real." So that makes me think that, I mean, I'm also just like hoping and praying that they do exist outside of the Hex, because and that's another thing. If we find out that they can't survive outside the Hex, that's just going to be another layer, just another notch in her belt into the theory that she's going to be the next villain. Because that's another just tough loss to deal with.
I think the whole ending of the series is going to be her coming to terms with Vision's grief, and then knowing that she now has this ability to start over with these kids. Because, again, they came from her. She gave birth to them, so that makes me think that they are very much alive, even without the Hex. They would be, but again, if they are alive, there's still that element that Agatha might kill them anyway. So you really have to think, what would happen if they died. I think that would definitely give Wanda a reason to be a villain, but I do think if they are surviving outside the Hex and they do survive through the finale, I think that would be a good way to kind of give Wanda that closure and say, I've grieved so much, but now I finally have kids and I have someone I can love, and I will make sure to love you, because time, we can't take time for granted. My only worry is that we have so much to explore with the kids, so much to explore with Wanda herself, with Agatha, with White Vision, with Tyler, with Monica, with Darcy, with Jimmy Woo, and with the Vision inside the Hex, and Pietro. That is 10 people, and possibly this cameo, if there is a cameo that's not Paul Bettany himself. That's a lot to uncover in just an episode, and that's why I'm a little worried, because this whole episode, we took this whole episode away from the whole Monica stuff and the Pietro stuff, pretty much. Pietro just found Monica and was like, "Snooper's gonna snoop, dude," and there was no dude, but that's just like how his voice sounded.
Really so good Evan Peters impression.
Thank you. I've been good with the impressions today. Wanda, baby. My biggest worry is that they're just going to cram way too much into like a half hour, 40 minutes. So I really hope that this episode is either longer, or I don't think we'll get another week of television, but maybe they will drop 2 episodes and be like, finale part 1, finale part 2, because again, they're riffing on sitcoms, and this might be a way to riff and say like, haha, when finales are like not really just a finale, but like 2 finales in one night. It could happen that way too, or it could be like they could name the episode like a full 2-hour finale, or the 2-hour season finale, and like give us a full 2 hours, but then it just becomes its own Marvel movie in itself. Right. And I don't think they're gonna do that, especially just budget wise. I don't know if they would put a whole make a whole 9th episode that's 2 hours long. I think we're looking maybe like 60-70 minute finale.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, we have lots to address, and I hope all the questions, maybe not necessarily answered, but at least addressed. Yeah, so that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I think we covered it all, Dale.
Yeah. One last thing. Christoph Beck, I think that's his name. I'm going to check really quickly. Christoph Beck. I have to give him credit. The MVP of this episode was the music. I think the music in this episode, when she is standing there with the deed, with the heart around the, to grow old in V, the music that is playing is the most beautiful music I might have heard in any MCU thing. Avengers Endgame had some beautiful music with the portals and then with Tony Stark's funeral. This piece of music, though, was absolutely beautiful, and I think we sometimes overlook music because, we're not kind of in the era of the classic theme songs like Batman. It was like the da-na-na-na-na-na Batman, and then you have Spider-Man, which is like the do-do-do-do-do-do. Those are very famous, iconic tunes that we don't get a lot of that in the MCU. We do see it with a little bit with Spider-Man, but like the fact that we're getting like a very beautiful piece of music, I think we have the tendency to overlook the music in the MCU a little bit. and I just wanted to give him a shout out because that music is absolutely gorgeous. It's not a theme song by any means. Like, you're not gonna remember the tunes, but in the context of the scene themselves, like, just the music is just gorgeous. So great job, Christoph.
It was a good ep. It was good.
Yeah.
I think it was the best, actually.
Best what?
The best episode.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so now you're a fan.
Well, I said that I loved it, but I was just a little let down because the internet like hyped up all this this delusion so much that I was gladly riding along with it. But
I think they were very well aware that people would look into it, and I think that's almost a part on the producers and the writers to be like, no, we want to mislead them so then we can misdirect them. I think it's the same thing that happened with The Last Jedi. I know a lot of people are not a fan of that movie and Star Wars, but a lot of it was, hey, this is what you thought. Well, this is really what we're telling. We want to tell this story, and it might not be what everyone likes, and a lot of people hated it. I liked it. There were some things about the movie I don't love, but like I liked how it kind of said. It kind of broke the rules almost. It broke the expectations for what the series had to be. And I think this is the same thing. I think they're purposely misdirecting us. And it's going to pay off in the grand finale that I cannot wait for next week here on Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. We are going to be talking about the finale. And a week after that, we will be talking villains. We will be ranking all the MCU villains, all the movie MCU villains. So sorry, Agatha, you will have to take a back seat this time. But, we'd love to have you. We will be talking about 30 Marvel villains. So let us know in the comments below what your favorite villains are, if you are excited for that show in 2 weeks, and what your theories for this final episode might be coming up, because we got a lot to unpack. Kelsey, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. Or you can find me on TikTok at Koz13, Koz13, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, Koz Productions, Koz Productions.
Do it. It's great. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo on Twitter. You can find me at Dylan Randazzo 417 on TikTok. I post food videos, I post music, singing videos, and I post 1-minute movie reviews. I haven't done a lot of that now that I've gotten the channel, but there are some from last year, like Borat and Soul and Wonder Woman 84 that you can check out. And you can, of course, find me here if you're watching on video at the Dill Pickle Movie Network. If you are watching and you want to help us out, go on to the either Apple Podcasts or Spotify app, anywhere you can find podcasts, and give us a review or something. Download it, because every download helps, even if you don't necessarily want to listen to us twice. If you're busy and you have a second and you have Wi-Fi, you're not using data, and you want to just play our podcast and turn the volume off and just let it run just to give us the views, I mean, we'd really appreciate it. And that's not us trying to be like sneaky or anything. It's just that's how the algorithm works. To get more viewership, we need more listenership, and we need more likes and subscribes and all that. So please recommend this. If you have friends who are Marvel fans, if they don't want to hear these deep dives on each episode, it's fine, because we have other stuff planned. We're doing a villains ranking in 2 weeks, so please tell them to come join us. Check us out on video form. Again, like I said, the Dill Pickle Movie Network. You can find us on YouTube. And later today, because you're listening to this on Monday, later today, you will get to see my Golden Globe reactions. The Golden Globes were last night, and you will get to see some live reactions in the moment of me reacting to the Golden Globes, and then some analysis about the Golden Globes. On Saturday, I posted my Golden Globe predictions. So if you haven't watched the Golden Globes yet for any reason, and you want to see my predictions and then go watch Golden Globes and then watch my reactions, they'll all be on this channel a little later in the day, in a few hours, if you're listening to this at 9 a.m. when it's posted. Join me there, and as always, join us here every Monday for this podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Dylan.
And I'm Kelsey.
And it's been a fun one. Thanks, everyone. Let me find this outro. I was not... There we go. Bye, guys!